Osama's hometown. They have nothing else to live for, and so they go out there. But they don't just put themselves at risk. In fact, they feel more comfortable putting other people at risk or kids at risk, that sort of thing. Did you get any reports back as far as how they fought against the coalition forces?
This is still ongoing, but I can tell you just the extent of how far these Fedayins go. They've been dressing in this one town in civilian clothing, disguising themselves as everyday Iraqi people, and then that's when they come out and attack. And we actually visited a hospital today where there was a Iraqi human shield. This guy, they went into his home, they forced him to dress in a uniform, go out with a fake AK-47 and approach the coalition forces to lull them over. And that's when the Fedayins went to attack the coalition forces, and a gunfire started.
Yeah, there you go, using somebody else to do your dirty work as well. Just one quick final question, Maya. This is still going on, the skirmish?
Correct. And they continue the 82nd is continuing to approach this one town, and as they're continuing this, obviously they're having some resistance here from the members of the Fedayeen Party.
Walt, Fox News producer from South Central Iraq somewhere. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Petto Second Class, Cutter Brewer from Beaumont, Texas. I'd like to say hi to my mom and dad, my little brother, and all my friends and family back at home. You're watching Fox News. God bless America.
Here are the latest headlines from Operation Iraqi Freedom. The bodies of 4 American soldiers have been found in a shallow grave just outside Nasiriyah. 4 Marines were recently reported missing in action in that area, which has been the scene of fierce fighting. Forensic scientists will try to identify the remains and determine if the soldiers were executed by Iraqi forces. Near the city of Najaf, 4 American soldiers were killed after a homicide.
Iraq. And early this morning, local time, we left with them on a convoy of about 70 Humvees and trucks, all loaded with their equipment and headed further north into Iraq. Troops traveled along a main supply route that U.S. coalition forces have been using during this war, and during the entire trip we had Kaya warriors that were flying above us to actually give us extra protection for the soldiers. Along the way you could see Iraqi local people going up to the road to greet U.S. soldiers. Many would give them a thumbs up, others would wave. I actually saw 2 Iraqi children that were actually waving small American flags. But many of them were actually begging troops for food and water, and you could see them rubbing their stomachs and tipping their hand back for water. We are now on the outskirts of the town of Osamawa, where the 82nd is currently engaged in a firefight. Troops have surrounded the town. They've been engaged for 2 days now in a fight with the Fedayins, a paramilitary group that are very loyal to Saddam Hussein. I just spoke to a soldier that just came back from the firefight, and he characterized the enemy as pretty bold fighters. He said that the paramilitary are usually wearing these black robes, and they come out firing AK-47s at Bradley tanks. A soldier just moments ago was actually brought in wounded from the fight. He was shot on the side of his face through his cheek, and there was actually no exit wound. The bullet landed in his mouth, and he was able to spit out the bullet, unfortunately along with most of his teeth. But I can tell you that he was just medevaced out of here, and besides being in a lot of pain, he'll be okay. We also know of 2 Iraqi soldiers that were killed today. It is nightfall now, and we can hear artillery rounds being fired and can see large explosions from the distance. And, of course, we will keep you updated as the story develops. Right back to you, New York.
All right. Maya Zumwalt in southern Iraq with the 82nd Airborne. Maya, thank you.
Well, right now, the big question is, of course, whether or not Saddam Hussein is dead or alive. There is also plenty of speculation about who exactly is in control in Iraq. Julie Kurtz is in Washington with the latest. Hi, Julie.
Hi there. Well, it's a constant question, as you know, among U.S. intelligence officials, and frankly, the media here, and Pentagon officials are constantly studying those videotapes we keep seeing.
They are flying around the clock over the city of Baghdad, but there are still some concerns about early warning radar there in the city and surface-to-air missiles directly over the city. However, it has not stopped the bombing campaign of key Iraqi facilities and also those Iraqi Republican Guard divisions in and around the city. Now, as you mentioned, today in the city of An-Najaf, that's about 90 miles south of Baghdad, there was a car bomb. An Iraqi drove up to a group of U.S. Army soldiers with the 3rd Infantry Division. He pretended that his car was in trouble. The soldiers went to help, and then he exploded, blew up the car, and killing 4 soldiers there. This is what the Pentagon and Central Command say is terrorism. They say they are prepared for it, but are having to deal with it now.
We're very concerned about it. It looks and feels like terrorism, and what it requires is units to conduct force protection activities, which they're prepared and do all the time. But clearly, when you see a tactic like this, it requires strict adherence or adjustments to your tactics, techniques, and procedures to ensure that places like checkpoints are not vulnerable. So it won't change our overall route of engagement. It doesn't affect the operation at large. To protect our soldiers, it clearly requires great care.
Well, we heard Maya Zumwalt there with the 82nd Airborne. They are being used as a force protection unit also around some of these airfields. It's key to point out that there are a number of forward airfields now being set up, some of them operational already. There are 2 in southern Iraq, 2 in western Iraq, and 2 in northern Iraq. They will be using some heavy transport planes to get some of the supplies into those airfields quickly so some of those forward troops can continue the push to Baghdad. Back to you.
All right, Brett, thank you for that.
Reports of atrocities by Saddam Hussein's terror squads coming out daily since the start of the war. Let's take a look at a photo that shows just how desperate some of the Iraqi civilians are to escape. A clearly frightened family making a dash for freedom from Basra, that of course is southern Iraq. They're just a few of the fortunate. Some 1,000 Iraqis who've managed to flee the city, now surrounded by British troops. Of course, the city is surrounded by British troops. At least 1,000 more people, though, not so lucky. Iraqi troops opened fire on the fleeing civilians, forcing many of them back into the city. No word on casualties.
And Iraqi civilians also being fed a steady dose of not just terror, but propaganda. A military spokesman on Iraqi TV reporting destruction of 6 coalition drones, 9 manned aircraft, 74 tanks, and 143 cruise missiles. And the Iraqi also claiming hundreds of coalition soldiers killed in the 10-day-old war. Now, Allied commanders, on the other hand, put the total of British and American soldiers killed at fewer than 60.
Fierce fighting in Iraq's northern region dying down today. Coalition troops getting help there from Kurdish guerrilla units. Chris Klein has been watching it all. We go live to him now via video phone. Chris.
Yes, indeed, Bob. Things are relatively quiet on the northern front, at least on this side of the green line, the line that separates coalition and Kurdish forces from their Iraqi adversaries. But certainly the events of the past 10 days, the repercussions of the past 10 days certainly continue to have an impact. Significantly, we can tell you that Iraqi forces have withdrawn a full 10 miles from their forward positions in the outlying areas by the city of Kirkuk, one of the 2 vital objectives that Allied forces no doubt are going to pursue because of its airfields, because of its oil installations, because of its large garrisons. But it would seem that the intensive Allied air bombardments have had an impact on those soldiers in the outlying areas. They've pulled back 10 miles to form, I suppose, a tighter defensive perimeter around Kirkuk. But then again, the opposite of that is that it's now a straight open road into Kirkuk. Mind you, to prepare for the Allied advance, the Iraqis have strewn thousands upon thousands of anti-personnel and anti-vehicle mines in this portion of ground that they've abandoned. And Fox News team today witnessed Kurdish forces withdraw.